The leader of the Roman Catholic Church, Pope Francis, prays before a 14-foot-long ancient linen cloth. The occasion attracts media attention because it is the first time that the cloth has been shown publicly in over 5 years. This Christian holy relic is referred to as the Shroud of Turin.
It's arresting. Like, let's just say that if the shroud truly is Jesus's image.
You know, I mean, just recently they verified the Shroud of Turin. Have you seen?
I think I might have seen that, and I thought to myself, that guy looks like...
Most people think the Shroud of Turin is just an old cloth with a faded image. Maybe something from history books or church museums. But what if it's much more than that? What if science can't explain how the image got there? What if it lines up exactly with everything we know about Jesus' death, down to the wounds, the blood, even the shape of his face? And now, actors like Jonathan Roumie are saying it's changed the way they see Christ completely. Nuclear-level energy, resurrection light, and a face that matches modern reconstruction. This doesn't look like fiction. And by the end of this video, you'll see why the Shroud of Turin might just be the most powerful archaeological evidence we've ever had about Christ's death and resurrection.
Shroud of Turin is this amazing relic. At bottom, it's a piece of...
Beyond the surface was in Japan when the nuclear bombs went off. So whatever took place to create this image in this shroud, a first century man who was highly tortured, and they show the full-size shroud, and those who are familiar with the Shroud of Turin, it's believed to be the shroud of Jesus Christ. It traveled for centuries under kings and guards, and it was stolen. Like, the history of this shroud is fascinating.
It wasn't part of his script. He didn't plan on talking about it. But during a live stream, Jonathan Roumie once again brought the audience to a holy hush. Because what he speaks about the Shroud of Turin goes beyond a place of curiosity or intellectual fascination.
There's a literal energy raised up the imprints. The imprint on the shroud is actually a raised surface. And essentially, from what I could gather from looking at this presentation, that this showed up, it's raised on a molecular level, and the only other time that they've seen an imprint that was left a physical mark of vibration, an imprint.
Like most Catholics, Roumie is convinced the shroud is real. He calls it a little momentum left behind by the Lord, like a fingerprint from the resurrection, a physical echo of something spiritual. And if you're someone who struggles with faith, Jonathan likens the shroud to Jesus telling Thomas, "Touch and believe." It's not blind faith, but an evidence of something divine. Something brutal, yes, but also glorious.
And the study that debunked it were debunked. For anybody that didn't know, they're like, oh, it was made and it was a medieval forgery. It wasn't. They found out that the piece that was tested to tell whether or not this shroud was a medieval forgery was actually a patch. The shroud suffered fire damage, and so they tested a patch that was repaired.
Then he shares a moment that's hard to forget. While scouting for the Chosen in California, he stumbled upon a room completely dedicated to the shroud. And what he saw stunned him. Not just the full-size display of the image, but the science behind it.
This is my t-shirt. Thanks for those who... My Shroud of Turin t-shirt. When Maria and I were scouting in the beginning of the week, this ranch in Southern California, they have these all these little meeting rooms, and in one of the rooms was set up an entire presentation about the Shroud of Turin by, I think that was put together by the guy who's like the world's foremost expert on the shroud. Like everything about it, the anomalies of it, the fact that there's a literal...
Roumie compares it to nuclear imprinting, the kind last seen after the bombings in Japan. Think about this. The spitting image, this face of agony and peace, isn't painted as science supposes. Neither was it drawn. It's embedded, etched by light, possibly resurrection light. And if that's true, then we're not looking at art. We're looking at a divine moment. A moment when death was crushed and eternity broke through the linen.
The Middle Ages. The rest of it still stands true. So, it's an image of a man that was created using nuclear energy. A man who was severely tortured and flagellated. And when you see the full-size thing, like, lit up, it's arresting. Like, let's just say that if the shroud truly is Jesus's image, if it is, Mel Gibson got it right in the past.
Jonathan also reminds us of something many didn't know. The infamous carbon dating test that once labeled the shroud a medieval forgery. They tested a patch, a section added after fire damage centuries later. The rest of the cloth remains untouched, ancient, and consistent with the time and place of Christ's death. To Roumie, this isn't just apologetic. It's a wonder that makes you stand as if on holy ground. He hasn't seen the shroud in person. Not yet, but you can hear it in his voice. He wants to. Not as a tourist, but as a disciple.
Because that man, on this image, Catholics believe it's Jesus. Words cannot describe the physical pain that he must have endured. Anyway, I didn't...
But what really is this Shroud of Turin? How has it managed to survive from Jesus' time till the 21st century? And most importantly, who's in custody of the age-long artifact?
The replica of the Shroud of Turin, you'll notice a couple of things. We're going to talk about the arms right now. So we can see the arms, both arms, they're folded over, one over the other. So this hand, the right hand over the left hand, and you can actually then see the hand as well as the fingers. And one of the things you'll see in a lot of the paintings that were made of Jesus while he's on the cross is that these fingers are very long. And most likely it's because they were misinterpreting what these fingers were coming from as they extended from the tip of the finger all the way down through what you would call.
The Shroud of Turin is the old piece of cloth that many believe shows the face and body of Jesus after he was crucified. And for years, people have argued over whether it's real or fake.
The replica of the Shroud of Turin, you'll notice a couple of things. We're going to talk about the arms right now. So we can see the arms, both arms, they're folded over, one over the other. So this hand, the right hand over the left hand, and you can actually then see the hand as well as the fingers. And one of the things you'll see in a lot of the paintings that were made of Jesus while he's on the cross is that these fingers are very long. And most likely it's because they were misinterpreting what these fingers were coming from as they extended from the tip of the finger all the way down through what you would call the hand.
In 1988, scientists tested it and said it was from the Middle Ages, not from Jesus' time. But more recent studies now say that test may have been wrong because the cloth could have been touched by many hands and picked up dirt and damage over the centuries. That might have confused the results.
Now, the other thing that's interesting is you'll notice that this stain here is really at the wrist. And that wrist stain there is not in the hands as traditionally thought of, but the nail went through the wrist, and it may have come back out on the other side through the hand.
Some scientists have looked at the bloodstains on a shroud. They say the wounds match what the Bible says Jesus went through: wounds from whips, nails in his hands and feet, and a crown of thorns. Others have studied the image on the cloth. They couldn't find any paint or ink, and no one really knows how the image got there. That has made people wonder if something miraculous happened.
According to the legends, the shroud is the cloth that his dead body is wrapped in. And because of the contact with the body of Jesus, that transforms and leaves a lasting mark on the cloth. And so the shroud is believed to be a holy relic because you don't get much more holy than the actual.
Still, not everyone agrees. Some researchers say more tests need to be done. The Shroud of Turin continues to draw attention. It's a mystery that keeps people talking and wondering. Could this really be the cloth that wrapped Jesus?
You know, I mean, just recently they verified the Shroud of Turin. Have you seen that?
I've been reading about it, and I know that there's some contention. There's some.
When two unlikely voices, Mel Gibson and Joe Rogan, start talking about the Shroud of Turin, you don't expect reverence. You don't expect awe. But that's exactly what you get. Because what began as casual banter quickly turned into a raw, unscripted reflection on this same piece of clothing that might just be the actual burial cloth of Jesus Christ.
And you can see it, that it depicts a first century Hebrew male, because the hairstyle was from the first century, and a Hebrew hairstyle, that he was about 6 feet tall, that he was completely scourged all over his body. He was crucified. That's
yeah,
it there.
the one on the left the one on the right is just like an artistic rendition.
That's the face.
Yeah, click on that one. The face. Yeah, that's good enough. Get that large. That's fucking crazy.
Yeah. Scourged, beaten.
Yeah.
The wounds on the thorns, the hands, the feet.
Joe Rogan kicked off the conversation with a simple but loaded statement, and Mel Gibson, who was already deep in the subject, didn't blink. He leaned in, because the shroud isn't just another artifact. It's one piece of clothing no one can fully explain.
And the hairstyle was from the first century. And the pollens that they found in the cloth were from that region.
Yeah.
Also, the weave was a first century weave that was typical. And another guy, an archaeologist who I knew, who actually translated the Passion into Aramaic, told me that if you look close, you can see the image of a Tiberius coin marks on the eyes. Now, I don't know if that's real or not. I've never actually checked that, but that there's images of Tiberius on the coin.
Because they would put the coins over the eyes?
Yeah. So that would date it.
For years, critics dismissed the shroud as a medieval hoax. But now, new studies, some using nuclear technology, date the cloth back 2,000 years. And here's the part that stunned them both. No one knows how the image was formed. It's not paint. It's not dye. It's something else. Some say it required an intense burst of light. Something so radiant, it left behind a photographic negative on linen. As Mel said, almost like an atomic flash. Then it got even stranger.
Discussion and debate about it, but they used to think that it was only a couple hundred years old.
Yeah.
And now they've changed that.
Yeah, they said no, it's back then.
They also don't understand how it was made, which to me is very fascinating because it's not paint. It's not, they don't know what caused the image itself and how that technology would have even been available.
It wasn't, no.
A couple thousand years ago.
An intense light, I mean, atomic, to leave almost like a photographic imprint on a piece of cloth.
Yeah.
And
it's wild. Pull that up. Pull the Shroud of Turin up.
Oh, yeah.
It's wild to look at because it's so interesting.
The man in the shroud was tall, Hebrew, scourged, pierced, crowned with thorns. Everything the Gospels describe. The cloth has pollen only found in the region around Jerusalem. The weave is consistent with first-century textile patterns. And according to Mel, the image even carries what appears to be the faint outline of Roman coins placed over the man's eyes. Coins dated to the exact period of Christ's crucifixion.
But they have now verified that it does actually go back to that time period. For a while, they were testing pieces that had been repaired in the 13th century or, you know. So.
What is the latest on that, Jamie? Can you see, like...
I was trying to get that. I have 2 different articles from within the last 6 months saying
the
opposite things.
So opposite, of course.
Dig into which one sounded the most accurate.
Well, it's such a crazy thing to even try to verify. Like, what are you saying? You're saying that this is really the shroud that Jesus was covered in? So you're saying Jesus historically absolutely did exist and we think that this is the shroud that covered him.
This isn't just another vague spiritual chatter. It is grounded in history, science, and raw fascination. Even Rogan, who often plays the skeptic, admits it's crazy. It's not a painting. It's something else. And then Mel dropped a line that's hard to forget.
Incredulity, people's immediately their hackles raise, like, wait a minute, and they just instead of like looking at it objectively, they almost always want to look at it from a point of view of disproving it immediately, dismissing it immediately.
But that's that's science, isn't it? You have to sort of you play the devil's advocate. And
What these two men stumbled into, perhaps without fully knowing, was sacred ground. Because if the Shroud of Turin is real, if that faint, haunting image was formed at the moment of resurrection, then it's more than a relic. It's a divine photograph. And the closer science gets to explaining it, the louder heaven seems to whisper, "Behold the man."
Fucks these people up.
Maybe. Who knows? I mean, there's got to be someplace, right? They buried it. They lost track of it.
Yeah.
But, man, it used to be. And all the stories are, if you even touched it, you fall over, you know, because it was constructed electrically somehow.
Yeah, like, what is that? What's in there? Yeah, why is it giving people cancer if they're really protecting it?
I think it's the actual structure of the container it's in that is the problem. That's my thought on it. I could be wrong. But I think inside it they have...
And as promised, Jonathan Roumie wasn't quite done with his awe of the Shroud of Turin.
My personal opinion, though, I think when it comes to contacting the real form and figure of the person of Christ, I just think I've got to go to the Shroud of Turin and really pray with the shroud. And I know there's been a number of renditions of drawings and paintings that depict that figure.
So now with the Shroud of Turin, there's two really cool things I wanted to bring up with this episode. One is there was the devotion called the Devotion of the Holy Face. Now the Devotion of the Holy Face was like a thing that a lot of people would meditate on and think of the visage of Christ and what that meant to them.
Imagine going to Shroud of Turin to connect with the real figure of Christ. It's not just a historical curiosity. It's something much deeper, much more personal.
Very popular in about the mid-1850s until about World War I, and then the devotion started to die out a little bit. But it was based on the image of the Shroud of Turin and contemplating the Holy Face. It was actually so popular that St. Teresa of Lisieux, her name that when she joined the Carmelites was St. Teresa, or Therese of the Child Jesus and the Face of Christ. Or, I mean, I want to make sure I get that accurate. It was something like that.
Yeah.
Very close. That the Holy Face devotion was part of her actual name that she took.
And he didn't say it flippantly. He said it with reverence. That when he wants to pray, really pray, with the image of Jesus, he turns to the shroud. That's where he finds something that feels holy, maybe even divinely preserved. And that changes everything.
The first appearance of the shroud in the written record is 1389 in France. It was kept in the capital of the Duchy of Savoy, a place called Chambéry. It had been moved around from time to time, but in 1578, it was brought from there to Turin. And so it's a way for people to be in the presence of Jesus.
The Shroud of Turin isn't just a mysterious relic tucked away in a cathedral. It might be the closest visual contact we've ever had with the crucified Christ. Scientists have debated it. Historians have tested it. And yet it remains unexplained, unmatched.
Everyone's convinced that the shroud is a genuine holy relic.
Ever since the shroud first really appears in history, there's been controversy about it, and there have been questions about its authenticity.
Is of the Child Jesus and the Face of Christ. Or, I mean, I want to make sure I get that accurate. It was something like that.
Yeah.
Very close. That the Holy Face devotion was part of her actual name that she took. And then the second thing about the Shroud of Turin is that there's a really great documentary about 5-6 years ago where they took the Shroud of Turin, took all the 3D data from that and created a computer model of what the man in the shroud would have looked like. And it is...
The group brings up something powerful, the devotion to the Holy Face, a practice born in the 1800s, rooted in that very image from the shroud. People meditated on it, prayed through it, found solace in the sorrowful yet peaceful face of Jesus.
I'll make sure that I post that image, but it's a really cool documentary. I really think you guys should go.
Was this on History Channel?
It was. It was by a guy named Ray Downing, who was a graphic and 3D computer modeling artist.
I think I might have seen that, and I thought to myself, that guy looks like me. It was a little creepy, in a good way.
Take a look.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah. Oh, for sure.
Let me see.
That's the one.
There's a little glare there. Let me see. Wow.
Yeah, looks a lot like you. So I'll make sure I post that. Now,
these side-by-side comparisons.
Yeah, I will.
That'll be on our Facebook wall or whatever.
That isn't just eerie. It's prophetic. Could it be that the man chosen to portray Christ for this generation bears the imprint of the ancient cloth believed to have covered Jesus in the tomb?
There's a couple other times where our Lord miraculously had his image appear. And I think everyone knows the woman who wiped his face on the Via Dolorosa, which is
Veronica.
So
yeah,
do you know
what there to that chapel?
Do you know what the name Veronica means? That was not a proper name.
Woman who wipes the face?
No. So Veronica it comes from the Greek word vero and icono, the true icon, Veronica. That's where Veronica comes from.
And that's what Roumie is chasing, not just a performance nor fame. He's seeking the true icon of Jesus, and maybe he's helping the world see it too. Do you believe, like Jonathan Roumie and others who have had a transformative encounter with this relic, that the shroud is what Jonathan says it is? Kinky, share your opinions with us in the comments, and please like and subscribe for more.